Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Today we have L.A. Nolan sir with us, the author of Blood and Brown Sugar. Thank you so much sir for coming on our show. I'm truly honored to be hosting you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Gaurav.
So, sir, before we get into the podcast and know much more about your books, about your vision and everything, I would request you to please introduce yourself so that our listeners can know much more about you. And moreover, I would request you one more thing to please share about your journey of being an author as well.
Certainly. My name's L.A. Nolan, Lee Nolan, and I'm Canadian-born Brit, actually. I'm the only Canadian-born member of my family. The rest we hail from Liverpool, England, originally. And I was born in Toronto, Canada. That's where I grew up. I lived abroad for a while in England, and I moved back to Canada. And then I moved to India in 2013. I've settled here permanently now. I'm an OCI card holder, so I'm a citizen of India. And I began writing. That's a tricky question. You know, the memory isn't as good as it used to be. I don't remember the exact moment. I remember at a very young age trying to write my own comic book, so I must have been quite young at the time. But all through school, I was, I enjoyed creative writing and things of that nature. But I guess it wasn't until probably the early 90s or mid 90s that I started writing seriously and submitting short stories mostly to pulp fiction magazines. I had some limited success, but then, as it often does, I was in my late 20s and life got in the way, and I proceeded with other careers and a family and a home and that sort of thing. So it wasn't. It was many years later when I came back to India, or when I relocated to India. That's when I started writing seriously again. It started with when I first came to India. I needed to integrate myself into society. As you can imagine, it was quite a culture shock. It's very different than Canada. And the fastest way to do that is to make friends. So I joined a motorcycle club in India, the largest one in India, actually, the India Bull Riders. And I guess through the first 2 years of my living here, I rode extensively through the country. I mean, I did over 60,000 kilometers in 2 years.
Oh my!
And yeah, it was. There were so many wonderful experiences and so many things I'd never seen before. I wanted to relay that to my friends and family back in Canada. So a close friend of mine suggested I start blogging, and I'd never considered myself a blogger. I'd never really written a blog before, but I gave it a shot, and it actually garnered some success. I was very happy with it, and surprisingly, it was more of an Indian audience than what I'd expected. So it was born from that blog that led to more short stories. I sort of picked up that torch again, and from there we moved into novels.
Okay. So, sir, as you shared that, in 2013, you just completely shifted to India, and you're now a citizen of India as well. So, can you share why have you chosen to be shifting from Canada to India? What was your main that kick, we can say, or something like that?
Well, Gaurav, generally the answer when a man does anything radical or drastic, it's because he fell in love, and that's exactly what happened to me. Not only with your country, but with a woman, and so I moved here to be with her.
Okay, so basically, how are you feeling? It has been around, I can say, around 9 years now. So, how's the feeling like?
Yeah, well, like I said, it was like moving to a different planet. There were some challenges, but I consider India my home now. I have no desire to leave.
So, sir, as we know that the book is released and it's performing really well on Amazon, I just saw. So, from a new reader's perspective, like after listening to this podcast, many people will start exploring about that book. Many will be willing to read that initially. So, from a new reader's perspective, can you share some insight like what a reader can expect from your book?
Well, there's, you have, as a writer, you have to be careful. What you want a reader to get from your work and what you actually deliver, or what you can tell them are two different things. And the unwritten contract with any reader is, here, read this. It'll entertain you and enlighten you. When deep down inside, all you really want to do is, rip somebody's guts out, right? So basically what you have to do is promise them it'll be an enjoyable read and then rip their guts out. That's pretty much what it's going to be. It's a roller coaster ride. If you like thriller, crime thriller, mysteries, that sort of thing, that's exactly what this is. And my goal was to shed some light on situations and maybe facets of society in India and North America that maybe aren't well known to most Indian readers. There's not a large genre for, while suspense thriller and thriller is probably the largest genre in India, it's very, very popular, other than romance and poetry. The subject matter that I deal with isn't one that has really been exposed to Indians. So with the culture within the book, it's exploding in India right now. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to maybe shed some light on things that Indians aren't that familiar with.
So, like, when it comes to choosing this particular topic, right? So you could have written something else, from a, if we can say, a debuting author's perspective. I can see that you could have written something else, some different genres as well. You could have chosen. But what motivates you to write on particularly this topic? Like, what was your initial inspiration?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've done an awful lot of riding through India. And 60,000 kilometers in 2 years. That's an awful lot of time inside your own. 60,000, 65,000. I lost track. To be completely honest with you, there's only about 3 states that I haven't ridden through. I mean, I have covered this country back and forth. Wherever you live, chances are I've ridden through it. Right? But that's a lot of time inside your own helmet, and a lot of time in hotel rooms or camping at night, and trying to process. The initial seed for the novel came from exactly that. That the book relies heavily, or it's based heavily on one man's journey through India, specifically, without getting too deep into it, but the deconstruction of his own personality and how India affects that. He's a foreigner himself, so much like all these experiences were new and it's something completely different for him. So that was the initial sort of drive behind the novel. It was trying to ratify all these new experiences and sights and sounds and foods and tastes and smells and all these things I've been bombarded with, along with telling the story of a young man who unfortunately deconstructs, actually. But so that was what brought it all about initially.
So as of now, talking on behalf of the readers who have already read your book, so like what we can expect more from you, like, and you want to try a bit on some other genres as well. You want to participate in just anthologies, or basically what's in the pipeline as of now? What a reader who have read your book can expect from you now?
It's funny that you asked that. Just this morning, I finished outlining my 2022 calendar.
Oh,
and it's
that's
I literally just before you began the interview, I just finished it up. It's pretty aggressive. I have a few things on the boil right now. First and foremost, there's a collection of short stories. And when you mentioned earlier about my genre, the crime thriller genre, this is in fact the first time I've written a crime thriller. And I'm more of a horror suspense sort of guy. I mean, that's where my talents laid as far as my short stories were concerned. So last summer I sort of got back to those roots, and I've written a collection of short stories in the murder, monsters, and things that go bump in the night genre. And so I expect to release that quite shortly. It's in its final edit now. Also, there's the sequel, of course, to Blood and Brown Sugar, Blood and Bombay Black. That's well into its first edit, so that's pending. I also wrote a first draft of a novel last November, A Mad Dog and Its Englishman. That's a bit of a departure for me as well. It's a historical drama that revolves around an English soldier in World War I who's stationed in India, and he befriends an Indian soldier, and the two of them travel through sort of a series of misadventures after being thrown in the stockade, and they escape and they try to get to Nepal during the end of the war, World War I. So that was a bit of a departure for me. So I've got quite a bit on the go, and hopefully one, maybe two releases this year, and then some more next year.
That seems to be, you are someone who have planned a lot of things, and you are here for a big picture you're watching as of now. And
Absolutely, Gaurav.
Definitely, the readers who have read Blood and Brown Sugar are not gonna disappoint, because there's a lots of things which sir have planned, and definitely it's going to be amazing. So my next question to you of this podcast is, sir, as we can see, as I have been in conversation with around 100 plus authors, so most of them are trying to build a certain sort of brand, a certain sort of impact on their readers' mind. Okay, let's say from a couple of years from now, if anybody sees okay, it's a book by L.A. Nolan sir, then what sort of impact do you want to create on their readers' mind? Like that sudden impact. Okay, it's a book by Nolan sir, then it must be like that, or I will get this thing from that book. So are you working on anything? Have you ever thought about it?
Not as in depth as you may think, but I do definitely. I don't want to confine myself to one particular genre. Although, no matter what I write, I do find myself sort of traveling down. I think what you're getting at is my style. Is when you say impact, I think you're referring to how I would affect a reader, and I always seem to find myself wanting to, what's the best way to explain? I want things to be deeply insightful. I want to move people. I want to touch people. I want people to be able to relate, impact people in a way that they say, yeah, that's either happened to me, or I can completely understand that, or I've witnessed that sort of thing. Yeah, I can relate to it. So I want my work to be relatable on a street level. For most people to be able to understand, but in doing that, I also want to push the boundaries a little bit and make people uncomfortable. I think that's probably the best word to describe how I want to impact people. I want to make them uncomfortable. When you put my book down, or when you turn the last page, I don't want it to fade away as so many books do. I want it to stick with you for the next little while and keep you up at night.
So you want to make readers do a little bit of brainstorming after reading to your books, right?
Exactly.
In fact, what I personally feel, sir, if I don't disagree with people who are just following a trend, they are following a genre, because it might work for them. But on a personal level, what I feel okay, if you are sticking to a certain genre, then let's say if it's working for you now, you can relating to it. But as around, let's say, around 5 to 10 years from now, if you will not be able to write on those topics, if you want to write on some other genre, then also you have to just stick on that genre to maintain your image, and that will be completely irrelatable too, because if you're not feeling something, if you're not just living those moments, then that line, it will be just a sort of line. It won't become any story ever.
Absolutely, I agree completely. I mean, the motivations for me writing is, if I can paraphrase Stephen King, he says, you don't write for riches, because if you write for riches, you're a monkey. And you don't write for fame, because if you're writing for fame, you're a monkey. You write because not to write is suicide. And that's exactly how I feel. I mean, it's my passion. It's what I do. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. I always have been. And to sort of conform, and again, as you've said, not to malign any author that does this, but to conform to certain trends, simply to get published or simply to have your novel picked up, for me, doesn't work. It's always been, and it will remain to be, always about the story. I don't write anything unless I have something to say, and what I have to say might not necessarily fit into current trends or things that are happening in the industry.
Okay, so my next question to you of this podcast is that, as we can see that after the first lockdown, numbers of authors have been increased to a large extent. The publishing has become so much easier. You can see that Amazon Kindle publication has been introduced. Many self-publishers are there. Lots of publisher, literary agents, basically. Everyone is there who are just uplifting the authors. So from that perspective, what do you feel as a competition in this industry? Like a sort of neck-to-neck competition, or you are someone who feels okay, it's a creativity, and in creativity there's no competition. Every book will find their own reader, every audience will find their exact author. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I believe that it's a strange profession, being an author. It's not where I don't believe that you're going head to head with another author in your genre, or necessarily someone that writes anything similar to what you write. It's creativity will find a way, like you said. I think that the cream will rise to the crop, the cream will rise to the top, and the best books will prevail. I think what this flood of authors into, you mentioned Kindle, what that's done is I think muddied the waters for readers, and that's who I truly feel sorry for. I mean, if people want to write, by all means, if you want to write a blog or a book or whatever you want to do, then write. Don't stifle your creativity in any way. Get out there and write. But this platform has allowed people to just publish at will, and unfortunately, there's a lot of books out there that they're unedited. They're not well written. There's no polish. And it's made it very difficult for the reader to sort of ascertain what's worth their time and what's worth their money and what isn't. And those are the people that I feel for. And to cloud that issue even further, with this wave of new authors, there's come a whole herd of independent publishing houses and literary agents. And I use literary agents. I use that term very loosely, especially in India. You've got to be so careful, because they're just there to make a buck, and they'll publish absolutely anything. And I feel sorry for some of these new authors who've written a manuscript, they submit it, and they're being told it's wonderful when it's really not, and they give it a cursory edit, and they publish it, and it's horrible, And so I think that's the biggest obstacle with this wave of new writers. As far as established writers or new writers who are taking the time and are very studious about what they won't release because they're doing it as a profession, not as a hobby, then those books will shine through eventually. So I don't necessarily feel any competition from anyone. I just sort of write what I write. For me, it's the story. It'll always be about the story, and that's what I want to do. I want to write and present an entertaining, polished, well-written story that people will enjoy.
No. Yeah, exactly. In fact, sir, I have read somewhere on it was printed on some e-newspaper, I guess. It was stated as there are more than 80 lakhs of books in the Amazon as of now, and 33% of the books haven't even sold a single paperback as of now. So that's a clear perspective which will be shown to the readers as well, because publishing anything directly on Kindle or something like that, publishing an ebook and just naming yourself as an author is not something which many people will go for, from my perspective. And this is the main reason why I feel the numbers of readers are getting less day by day, and the numbers of authors are getting increased day by day. That's one thing as well.
Absolutely. And the odd thing is that there's a direct correlation between reading and writing. But you can't be an author. You can't be any sort of successful author or find any satisfaction as an author, I don't believe, unless you're an avid reader. They go hand in hand. It's your craft, and if you don't read, you're not going to improve. So if people are out there just churning out 30 or 40,000 word novels or novelettes, and not investing any time of their own in the industry doing their research and reading, then how can their final product possibly be any good? Now, as I said, I feel for the readers out there. If they're scrolling looking for a new read because this is what they do, they enjoy reading, then they stumble across a book that's 99 rupees. How do they know if it's someone who's just knocked something out because they want to tell their friends they're a published author, or if it's somebody that's actually invested the time and effort to make sure it's something worthy of a read? I feel really bad for people out there. Take care.
And sir, as of now, do you have any particular writing schedule, like you devote some hours to your writing, or you're someone who feels okay, sometime if you get some ideas, some thoughts, you just jot it down on your phone, on your diary, and when you get time, then you just complete them? Like, how does it goes with you basically?
I'm very regimented. That's twofold. It's a lot to do with my OCD, and a lot to do with, I guess, my fear and worry that someday my talent will run out. I'm very, very strict when it comes to my writing. As Ray Bradbury said, the only reason you'll fail is if you don't write. And so I do every day. I get up at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, and that's mostly due to my puppy. We've just got a new dog, and he sort of dictates to you, what time I get up in the morning. But even aside from that, I've always been a very early riser, and I'm most productive in the morning. So I'll write from 6 until I run out of steam every day. So usually around noon or 1. But that for me is an unshakable regimen. I might take Sundays off or birthdays or things of that nature, but no, I write every single day. Like Stephen King said, I mean, if you're not willing to put in the time, then how can you ever be successful?
So, sir, till now we have talked about your journey, about your book, about your vision, about your competitiveness, about your thoughts about this industry and everything. Now coming to your personal life, like there must be a lot of moments which you have felt the most happy at that time. But if you can share any one of them with us, then that would be really great. Your happiest moment.
Oh, Gar, that's a tough call. There's been a lot of highlights. To pick just one would be difficult. The birth of my son, I think, changed my life immensely. That was a wonderful time in my life, a wonderful time period. The first time one of my short stories got accepted by a publisher, the first time that I was picked up traditionally, with my novel, that was a huge moment. There's been so many fantastic, even relocating to India, was a huge step in my life and something that I cherish. I coached football, Canadian football, for many years back in Canada, and there was one year that we won the provincial championship. That was another real highlight in my life. I don't think anything actually compares to publishing your first novel. That was the one for me.
But now let's go back to the time when your book was about to be released the next day. So on that eve, what was going in your mind? Like, were you feeling stressed, relaxed, excited, or you have just marked up some milestones for your book? Basically, okay, these many people know me, so my book has to be sold out this many copies in these days. Like, what was going in your mind at that time?
Oh, I was a train wreck. I was an absolute train wreck. I wasn't. My major concern was how the book would be received. It wasn't sales. We'd done a pre-launch party 2 days before the actual release of the book, and it was attended by a large number of people. Some noteworthy people that had done a pre-read. I knew the feedback was good. I wasn't concerned with sales. Not that I was anyway, but I knew the book would sell quite well. I was more. My biggest worry was, would it be understood? Would I reach people? Would I affect people? And unfortunately, it takes months to find that out. It's not until the reviews start to come in that you truly understand whether what you've set out to do has been accomplished. And I mean, through reviews, that's direct feedback from the reader. And that's what I was worried about the most. Are people going to understand? Are they going to get it? In fact, there was one review in particular, and I'm not ashamed to say, maybe shouldn't tarnish my bad boy image, but it moved me to tears. It was an organic review from just a reader, not someone that I know. It certainly wasn't a reviewer or a critic of any sort. It was just your average reader who picked up the book by chance, read it, and wrote a very lengthy review on Amazon, and it literally moved me to tears because they understood. They connected with my characters. They understood the plot and all the subplots. They very clearly stated how it affected them, and they understood the conclusion, where what I was setting out to do, and that feeling is incredible. So that's what I was striving for. That more than anything else is what was stressing me before the launch of the book.
In fact, what I personally feel on these topics are, if you're preparing something which is not have been revealed to the world as of now, and when you reveal in front of the whole world and they accept it with open heart, then that's one of the most beautiful feelings.
Absolutely, very well put. I mean, and the fact that you can connect with a reader on that basic level, and to know that what you set out to do within your craft is working, that validation that you're a writer, and that you can affect people's moods or thoughts or change the way they might perceive certain situations, any of that sort of stuff. When it becomes clear you've actually done that, it's an amazing feeling.
So as of now, sir, what's your current mental state as an author, as a person? What are the things which you're focusing upon in life?
Oh man, I'm insane. My mental state, I'm absolutely insane. As I mentioned to you, I've already I've just completed my 2022 outline, and I'm focused. I'm driven. I'm a storyteller, and that's what I want to do. That's my passion, and that's my drive. I don't have anything else on the horizon other than accomplishing what I've set out to do in 2022. And I can liken it to, I suppose, a small business owner, where all of your time and efforts are devoted to, creating successful environment for your business. And while that might be more of a commercial application, where it's, writing is more an artistic, the drive is the same. I want you to read my book. I want you to enjoy my book. I don't necessarily do it for critical acclaim. I just, on a one-to-one personal level, want people to enjoy what I've written, and that's what I'm focused on. I have little time for anything else.
My last question to you of this podcast would be, sir, after listening to this podcast, many people will start writing, or many upcoming authors must be listening to this podcast in future. So what would be your single piece of advice for them, if you can give? Like, they are basically holding their first draft in their laptop, in their diary, in their notebook. So what would be your advice for them?
That's a great question. It comes up quite often, and I'm in a few writing groups, and there's a lot of new authors in writing groups, and I think that the best words of advice that I could pass along would be that first of all, when you're going to write your first draft, and whether you're a plotter or a pantser, I mean, a plotter is someone who will write pages of character sketches and plot outlines, and have it detailed right down to the last page before they start writing. Whereas a pantser just sort of sits down behind a blank page, and they have the outline in their head and they just go for it. Both systems work very well depending on the type of person that you are. But regardless of what kind of person you are, once you set out on that first draft, don't stop. Don't re-edit, don't polish, don't look for plot holes, don't reread, don't write 3 chapters and then send it out to a beta reader. Get it on paper. Just vomit it out and clean it up later. That is the biggest mistake I think that new authors make, is that they try to assemble the finished product as they go. And it's just not possible. I mean, we've become so accustomed to seeing on TV or in movies where the writer is sitting behind his laptop and tapping on the keys and he hits print. And then out of nowhere, the publisher shows up and runs away with the manuscript, and it's done. And I mean, that's just not the case. There's months of hard work ahead of you. After that first draft, you've got lots of time to fix plot holes. You've got lots of time to polish. So when you're writing that first draft, head down, bum up, and get it done. Don't let anything get in your way until you do.
Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this episode, and if you do, then do follow our podcast, Reading the Author, available on all the leading podcast platforms. And don't forget to buy and read the book. Just go on Amazon and search L.A. Nolan, or you can either search the book name as well, Blood and Brown Sugar. You will get the book. Just buy it, read it, and share with your friends and family as well. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. It was my honor to host you today.
Thank you very much for having me, Gaurav. It's been a great time.